ADHD reWired, episode 493. This is the podcast for those of us with really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. I'm Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker by training and a coach by design. I'm your host, and I have ADHD. ADHD reWired is more than just a podcast. We are a community. We are wired for connection, and you are not alone. Go to ADHDrewired.com to learn how you can join us in our free and secret Facebook group. Get additional resources for every episode, including links to any resources we mention on today's show. You can support us on Patreon, sign up for our email newsletter. You can request podcast postcards to distribute to your clients and support groups. Learn all about our award-winning coaching and accountability groups. You can co-work with us in our Adult Study Hall virtual membership community. You can do all of these things by going to our website at ADHDrewired.com. We know that starting is the hardest part, so let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of ADHD reWired. Today's guest is Rachel Moore. Rachel is a licensed psychotherapist, a marriage and family therapist based in San Diego, California. She's certified in EMDR and trained in brain spotting. She works primarily with creative clients such as artists, writers, and musicians. Before becoming a therapist, Rachel earned her bachelor's degree in creative writing and was a newspaper copy editor for 14 years. She's also a musician and a singer, as well as a proud member of the ADHD community. Rachel, glad to have you on.
Thank you so much, Eric. I'm thrilled to be here, really. This is great.
So, I haven't really done much on the podcast about EMDR, and I'm not even sure if I've mentioned brain spotting before on the podcast. So what I want to do first is have you just share like the I don't know, maybe the 10,000-foot view. What is EMDR and brain spotting, and are these connected?
Sure. So, they are two different types of therapy. They are connected. So EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which is a really clunky term and not even a great abbreviation, but there we have it. And brain spotting actually came out of EMDR. And so EMDR was developed originally by Francine Shapiro. I think she was diagnosed with cancer like in the 80s or the 90s. And she was stressed, about this. She was upset about this. And so she went for a walk and she was noticing her eyes going back and forth as she was walking. And she was noticing that she was feeling better. And that gave her an idea. The idea was maybe there's something to this eye movement thing that has to do with trauma. There's been, of course, many years of development since then, different theories as to why EMDR works. One of the theories is that when we're sleeping and our eyes are in REM mode, so rapid eye movement going back and forth, that maybe that is our brain processing the events of the day or whenever and sort of putting them in order. Like I always think of it, like a file cabinet, just like filing things away so you can access them later if you need to, but they're not getting in the way, right? Unfortunately, trauma can affect that process in our brain. And what happens when something traumatic happens, and I want to say briefly, trauma can be either something big that happens in the moment, like a car crash or a natural disaster. Trauma can also be over a period of time. Somebody, for example, whose identity is ignored or rejected over a period of time, that can be traumatic, right? And when trauma happens, it's like the thing is happening right now, even though it's not in reality. It feels like you get the same body sensations, thoughts, emotions as if it's happening right now. And so they found that through EMDR processing, it can help reduce the level of distress of the trauma in the brain. And that's what we go for. So that's the quick overview. And then brain spotting came out of that when they realized, David Grand realized that he was working with somebody and he noticed that when he would have their eyes be in a particular place, they had some sort of, body reaction. He wondered what was going on there. And so he just kept his pointer or whatever he had there to have the eyes go back and forth. He just kept that in one place and noticed that a lot of processing was happening. Processing meaning actually allowing the brain to do that process of filing things away in the right order so they're not disturbing to us and so we can still reference them if we need to. So that's EMDR and brain spotting. They, as you can tell, like they involve the body to a certain degree, which is a little different, right, from regular talk therapy, which kind of just deals with thoughts, and
Yes.
emotions. So I think it's a lot of fun, and there's a lot, I could go into about that, but that's the general idea.
And now you also have a podcast, and I was actually listening to one of your episodes, and you and the person you were talking with were sort of talking about like how you've been moving away from the sort of rigid, manualized approach
Mm.
to EMDR. Because in stuff that I've read on EMDR, it's kind of like, oh, you don't even have to talk about your issues. You just kind of think about them and move your eyes around, kind of.
Kind of.
And you're like, no, no, no. It needs to be more of a relational based therapy. So, like, what does that look like?
That's a great question. So, I guess in reality, with my clients, like sometimes, well, here's the general thing is I am always quote unquote doing EMDR because I'm
Okay.
always looking at the clients, looking at the case through that lens. The past affects the present, affects the future, right? Always thinking about past, present, future, always thinking about where is this in the body. And so sometimes, with clients, we may have a session where we just talk, right? And it is talk therapy in a way. And also though, I may ask questions like, how does that look in the body? Or where do you feel that in the body? What are you noticing coming up? What images are you noticing? Things like that. And yeah, the relational piece I think is really important because of the idea of the window of tolerance. Meaning, like, if we're going to learn anything, and I think this is really important for ADHD folks too, because I would say generally we're probably tend more toward anxiety for a variety of reasons, right? When we're in our window of tolerance, though, and what that means is like we're feeling relaxed and yet able to focus, that's when we're able to learn the best. And so if somebody feels cool with me and they feel comfortable with me, they're probably going to learn better. Their brain is probably going to respond more to what we're doing rather than if they're in fight or flight, which is out of the window of tolerance, or they're in freeze, which is also out of the window of tolerance. If they're having those what we call trauma responses of wanting to run away, fight, close up, the brain can't learn in those situations. So I think it is very important, like, to just be humans with one another
But
and heal from there. Yeah.
how do you distinguish the difference between just maybe a general state of overwhelm and a trauma response?
Maybe they're not different. I don't know.
Mm.
Can you tell me a little bit more?
I remember a number of years ago when I think this is partially when I was in the beginning process of going through my divorce and I was working with my therapist. One of the things I found that like when certain things were discussed, that like I just lost my words. Like I could not like it's like there's very few times where my brain is quiet and empty. And
Mhm.
I was finding and then when learning about part of the trauma response is often that sort of the language parts of our brain kinda go offline. I was like, "Oh." And, one of the things that she had my therapist had suggested is like, "I don't even care if what you're trying to say makes sense, just keep talking. Keep putting words together, and, like, we'll work with what comes out."
Mm.
And, like, that was a
Cool.
super helpful thing for me because I would like, it wouldn't happen like a light switch, but it was like I started to feel it happening, and then I'm in my head, and then it's like, mute. I'm stuck, I'm frozen.
It reminds me of something else too. Quick side note, I was in therapy once and my therapist kept telling me like, "Don't censor yourself, just say whatever." And I sort of have the experience, I don't know if other people do, of like trying to organize my thoughts and I really
Yeah.
don't have anything. Maybe that's kind of what you were experiencing and what your therapist said, just whatever it is, bring it out. But it wasn't that I was like trying that I felt ashamed or was trying not to say something. It was like I literally was trying to figure out what the first next thing would be to say. Like I just don't know. I finally had to tell her, and she's like, "Oh, okay." But yeah, I mean, I think that yeah, again, to think about this idea of trauma is like, I think it's such a that's such a evocative word. Again, we think like, "Oh my God, that must be something terrible," but sometimes it isn't something super terrible. Sometimes it's just like this, like you said, like the front part of the brain goes offline because those back parts of the brain, the survival parts of the brain, are starting to kick in. And maybe there's a spectrum too, right? Maybe it's like, yeah, you didn't completely freeze up, but you just noticed that happening. Yeah.
Can these modalities help? Because for a long time, I've, like, felt that there is something almost, like, deep in my brain that, like, is that if I can just access whatever that thing is, like it's going to open up all of this healing. And like, can this process, if you have stuff that's you had, I like the way you expressed it, like having an identity ignored, and like who listening to this podcast doesn't know that feeling, right? Like
Mhm.
ADHD, you're just lazy, right? It's like, yeah, that's traumatizing to
Yep.
have that, the complete disregard of your life experience. And that's something that so many of us have experienced. So, it's that sort of trauma by a thousand paper cuts of being misunderstood, of making, the same mistake now for the thousandth time that you swore you weren't going to make again. So how does things like EMDR and brain spotting help identify these issues if you aren't able to fully put your finger on what the issue is?
That's great. Wow. So many thoughts. And I will say, like, I've been told, yeah, by more than one therapist, like in my life, oh, you can't be ADHD because you get so much done.
I've been told
Like,
that before too.
yeah, totally not understanding the idea of being twice exceptional,
Mhm.
right? Where you're gifted and, have something else going on, like ADHD, right? At the same time, and how stressful that is in the body. So I think on the one hand, this can help with the trauma from being misunderstood about ADHD simply because it helps with trauma. Do you know what I mean? And if you have, I would say, to be sure to find a therapist who understands that it's traumatic, exactly what you described, Eric, right? And why, that death by a thousand cuts. Yeah. If, and to really target that and help heal that. As far as the like, there's something, and I don't know exactly what it is. I would say, sometimes people do ask that. They'll say, like, I think I have this trauma in the past, but I can't remember what it is. I don't know if that's exactly what you're talking about, but
Mhm.
I am intrigued though by this idea of like something, something there. I definitely tell people that you may never know the details of what happened, and part of that is because of just the function of memory, the way that it works. It doesn't take an accurate picture, ever, really. Even if you have a video tape, sometimes, I'm just aged myself videotape, but sometimes, sometimes that's not even actually what happened, and everybody's got different versions, et cetera, et cetera. What we can do and what we do focus on is how whatever that is, and even it might even be the distress of not knowing what it is. We can target that, right?
Mm.
We can be like, okay, that's been distressing for you. Like, let's go into that. Let's see when you felt this way before. Let's see how it affects you now. Let's do some processing on that feeling. So, we can target the distress of not knowing. We can target like whatever it is about this thing that you feel like is affecting you now. That's where we head. So it's the emotional effect of the trauma from the past. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these things when especially with brain spotting, I was first introduced to brain spotting at a social work conference. And it was one of these, there's a couple of different sessions going on. And like, it was probably like, oh, that one seems a little interesting, but that also sounds like really kind of woo woo. And like, let's see what this is all about. And so they did this really cool demonstration. I mean, I don't even know how else to describe it. Then it was like, whoa. When we first talked and had our pre-interview, it's one of the benefits of being a podcast host. I get to sometimes sit in the driver's seat or the passenger seat, whatever, for a demonstration or something like this. And I think we were talking about some like musical writer's block that I was experiencing, and I don't know, it was maybe all of 5 minutes that you did this
Yeah.
demo with me,
Mhm.
and whew, like I got really emotional. Like there was
Mhm.
definitely like even just talking about it now, I can actually feel I'm getting like full body goosebumps right now, and feeling that even though I don't even remember the specifics of the topic we were even talking about. Like I just remember having that like whoa kind of feeling. What is that?
So here's the thing too with trauma. It does not sit at the front of our brain where our language center is, right?
Mm,
So maybe like to go jump back to when you were saying you lost of the words. Trauma lives in the emotional parts of the brain, the middle part of the brain, and the survival parts of the brain, the back part of the brain. That's where it lives, and so that's what we're accessing. It doesn't. It makes sense to me that you don't remember the details because that's not the important part when we're working with on trauma, right? It's not the part of the brain that we're really working with. Is that prefrontal cortex, executive functioning, logical part of the brain? It's more the emotional, it's more the body. Yeah. It's so
mm.
cool. That was a really cool experience to walk you through that.
Well, I think what we might do is we might do some other form of demonstration here. We're going to take a quick break, but you also discussed something that I actually never heard of before until about 15 minutes ago before we actually hit record. There's a modality called Flash. I actually
Mhm.
still don't know anything about it. So we're going to learn together when we come back from this break. So we will be right back with Rachel Moore. We'll be right back. Since 2014, ADHD reWired has been helping people grow through community. And nothing embodies this more than our 10-week intensive coaching program with ADHD reWired's coaching and accountability groups. Learn more and get in our fall interest list at coachingrewired.com. Here at ADHD reWired, the mission of our coaching groups is to create a safe and supportive environment that empowers our members, giving each and every member a space to learn and practice the tools and strategies we share so they can live a more intentional and wholehearted life. From habits, routines, and effective time blocking to long-term goals, energy management, and actionable to-do lists, that mission doesn't stop at 10 weeks. Momentum and support continues with members of our wonderful alumni community, some of which you can hear in episode 400 of this show. So if you want to learn and grow and take your ADHD management to the next level with a group of amazing neurodivergent people who truly do understand ADHD and the challenges we face, then join us for our next season of coaching and accountability groups. Go to coachingrewired.com and click on that button at the top of the page to add your name to our fall interest list. And then keep an eye out in your email so you can stay up to date for our upcoming fall registration events. Get started, stay in the loop about our fall season, and learn more at coachingrewired.com. That's coachingrewired.com. All right, we are back. All right, Rachel, let's dive in. Let's talk about first of all, what is Flash? I mean, because I said like that, I'm hoping this comes with a cape and a cool shirt.
Well, first of all, I'm so excited that you're willing to dive into this because I have to admit, like, I love when clients come to me and they're like, "Yeah, let's go. Here we go." I'm that type of therapist, and I'm like, "Great, let's hit the ground running. Let's do it." So I love that you're willing to try this out. Flash was developed by someone named Philip Manfield, and it came out of EMDR, although now it's seen as a standalone modality that people can use. I see it as kind of a middle section between a resource and processing. I know those are technical terms, but what I mean by that is a resource is something like when we do in EMDR, we create a safe place for you in your mind. We create a container in your mind for you to put disturbing things into. That's like a resource. And processing is more like the heavy duty eye movement, EMDR stuff.
And
Or brain
is when
spotting.
you say resource, is that the same thing
Yeah.
as like resourcing that you hear about in like maternal family systems, where it's like identifying where your strengths and supports are?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably similar. I'm not familiar with IFS, and that sounds very similar because we
Okay.
can do that too. Yeah, so that's resourcing. Because what Flash does, it just helps bring down the distress of a disturbing memory or a disturbing event. And it does it, however, in like a really fun way. Like they did a study on Flash versus EMDR, and Flash we just use as one part of EMDR, but in that part, the study showed that people preferred Flash over EMDR, the traditional EMDR, because Flash was more fun, and they just preferred it, and it worked exactly the same effectiveness.
The way you set that up in my mind, I'm literally having this like image of like in one corner we have EMDR weighing in at, and in the other corner we have Flash.
Such a catchier name, right?
I think the rest of like the psychotherapy world needs to like, think about these kinds of names because like generally we are awful at naming stuff in the
I
psychotherapy
know.
world. Like it's, yeah.
Yeah, no, they did good with this one. So, let me explain it to you, yeah?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, so the first thing that I would like you to do is to just bring up a disturbing memory or event, or even like something in the future that might be bothering you. You don't have to go into a lot of detail about it, but just kind of bring something up in your mind.
Okay.
How disturbing is that 0 to 10? And 0 being no disturbance or neutral.
Hmm. Now the issue is I have like a bunch of ones that are in my brain. They're like, pay attention to me, use me. Because the good and bad news is there's plenty to use. It's picking which memory I want to use. Is there any pro or con to using one that is either more recent or more in my history?
It's fine either way.
Okay, I'm filtering right now.
That's okay. It could be, it doesn't have to be super heavy.
Okay. Um, um, okay, I got something. I'm going to tell you what it is.
It's up to you.
Um, it was the experience I had when I was 14, coming out to my parents as telling them that I thought I was bisexual.
Mhm.
Um,
Right.
yeah, so
Okay.
that's the scenario.
Yeah, that sounds like a good touchstone memory for you. Good. Okay. So when you think about it now, we're not going to spend a lot of time back there in the past. So when you think about that memory now, how disturbing does it feel to you? 0 to 10, 0, no disturbance or neutral, and 10, the highest you can imagine.
And disturbing, like, physically, emotionally, or
Whatever disturbance means to you. So it's kind of like I tend to tell people like maybe I hear about it and just as a person, I think like, wow, that's really sad or scary or, whatever. That's different from you actually experiencing it and feeling like maybe things that are above and beyond sort of that normal reaction that somebody might have.
okay. I would say maybe a 4.
4. Okay, great. Good. Okay, so now we're gonna set it aside.
Okay.
We're gonna set it aside, and I would love you to think of something like a topic that's engaging, positive, that holds your attention. I'll give you some examples. We usually try to avoid other people because they get complicated. So, some examples I've heard in my time are, somebody told me how to build a cabinet. Another person told me all about aliens. People love telling me about reality TV. So, it
Okay.
could be that. It could be other podcasts. It could be books. It can be like anything that like really holds your attention. That's the most important part. And positive is better.
Okay. The very first thing that came to my mind was pickleball.
Pickleball! Fantastic. Okay. So now I'm going to show you what we're going to be doing together
Okay.
as you tell me about pickleball. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you in a moment to tell me a bit about pickleball. And while we're doing that, we're both going to be tapping back and forth. If you can tap on your legs, it's even better, but I'm just kind of demonstrating here and I'll tap along with you. So, listeners, I'm just tapping my hands slowly back and forth. And then every now and then, as you're talking, I'm going to say the word flash, and you'll blink your eyes 3 times and then a flutter, just blink, 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 blink.
Okay.
So you're talking, I say the word flash, blink, blink, blink. Eric is blinking. Fantastic. That is beautiful. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yay. Okay. You ready?
Think so? Yeah.
Okay. Tell me about pickleball.
Oh man, I fell in love with pickleball
Flash.
the first
He's blinking.
time
Great.
that so I kind of stumbled into it. They had open gym at where I
Flash.
work out, and that sounded way more fun than just hopping on the elliptical. So I'm like, I think I played that in high
Flash.
school gym. And what I love about it is just like one, it was
Flash.
really easy to pick up and start, and like a lot of people who play like got kind of hooked on it like right
Flash.
away. And I love how social it
Flash.
is.
Good. Let's
And
pause there.
okay,
That's great. I'm sure there's more, even to talk to about with pickleball, but for now, we'll pause
okay,
there. Okay, we're just gonna dip a toe back into that memory. So, like I said, just dipping a toe just a little bit back into that memory. Do you notice any change in the memory at all in any way?
um, not no change in the memory per se. I noticed a little bit of a low level feeling of anxiety that wasn't there a moment ago.
Ah, okay. 0 to 10. How disturbing does the memory feel to you now?
Maybe 5.
Okay. Are you okay with continuing?
Hmm.
Let's go for it. All right. Tell me more about pickleball, will you, please?
So, like, one of the things I love about it is the way the sort of the
Flash.
social openness of it. Like, you just show up and you get to mix in with other people. And I knew I had the bug as soon as I started watching all these
Flash.
videos on pickleball and uh, like just playing all the time. And like, I love that you can play
Flash.
competitively with people who are 20, 30, 40 years older and or younger than you.
Hmm. Mhm.
Yeah, it's a super fun game of kinda like
Flash.
get the ball, get the ball, get the ball, get the ball.
Good, let's pause there.
Okay.
Yeah, I played this in high school too, and I thought it was great. Okay, when you, dip back into that memory just briefly, do you notice any change?
I still notice that anxiety, but I also feel like there's almost like a layer of warmth around it.
Okay, cool. Should we keep going?
Sure.
Okay, great. You're doing great. All right, tell me some more. Social, I think we ended on social aspect.
Okay. Um, I'll tell you that last week I went to a hearing in my town because they wanted to change the rules for open play, and, like, they opened up 2 or 4 new courts, and they
Flash.
wanted to move the open play to the forecourts, and, like, everyone's kind of all the pickleballers are, like, up in arms about this because it's like,
Flash.
"Don't change what's not broken." And so
Pickleball riot, yeah.
I went and spoke at this hearing, um, and it's
Flash.
just something that's just so like, it's cheaper than therapy. It's like it is my therapy. It is like I
Wow.
feel so like whenever I play pickleball, I just feel so good,
Flash.
even when I'm not playing that well.
Nice, yeah, good, let's pause there,
Okay?
great. Okay, when you think back to that memory real quick, do you notice any change?
Don't feel as anxious right now.
Okay,
Um, I would say whatever that initial feeling was would be more like a 3 right now.
3, okay, great. So, oh, was there more? I'm sorry.
Um In my mind, I don't, like, see myself as much that, in that memory.
Mhm, mhm.
It's funny because I strongly remember the chair I was sitting in, like, when sharing this with my parents, and when I was just thinking about it again now, I'm just picturing the chair there, not
Yeah,
myself. Huh,
yeah,
what does
uh-huh.
that mean?
Well, in this, and we could keep going on if you want, but it's your show, so I'll let you you can tell me. But in this quick demonstration, we actually showed pretty much everything, almost everything about Flash and the way that it works. First of all, how was that for you? Was it fun? Did I lie or was it fun?
I found the part that I found hard was it's sorta like, like hitting your like, tapping your head and doing circles on your stomach, kinda feel like
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
requires that working memory of like, "Okay, I'm supposed to be doing this thing while I'm talking about this other thing," like and that was a little bit hard. I'm someone who, like, I can't have a conversation while getting dressed because, like, as soon as I start talking, I stop, like, buttoning my shirt, like, because it's like I just stop moving. So, like, I definitely noticed, like, oh, I feel like I'm having to be really conscious of that, and then when I'm being conscious of
Mhm.
that, it's hard to continue to talk about, what you're asking me to talk about. Yeah, I mean, it felt a little, like, pressured and forced, but, like, just because it felt different. It's not something I haven't
Yeah.
done before.
And that's something, and I'm glad that you brought that up because that was something that I didn't think of mentioning until about halfway through was like, yeah, if you feel like your brain is failing at this, that's good. That's what we're going for, right? If you're feeling like, oh, I can't keep up or I don't know or I'm having trouble, I'm like, it's exactly what we're going for because you're right. We're taxing that working memory, the short-term memory, in order to bring down the distress of the long-term memory. And that's another theory of how all this stuff works. So I'm sorry that it felt stressful for you, and, if it did and if it felt hard, that's exactly what we were going for, and I noticed that there was some movement. Movement can be up or down along the scale of distress because sometimes it is sort of good to feel a little bit more
Mhm.
about the memory because that's necessary in order to process through it, right? So you went from a 4 out of 10 up to a 5. You're feeling a bit more, maybe some of the pressure of the actual new technique, right? Coming up to, and then it went down to a 3, and we could continue. We would continue normally until it got down to a 0. Um, yeah, that's Flash.
Okay. Huh.
Oh, and also I wanted to mention and how you mentioned the memory actually changing so that you see less of yourself and more of the chair, for example. That probably would continue to shift and change as we continued working with Flash. The memory would keep
Hmm.
shifting.
'Cause they say with, like, every time you recall a memory, it kinda changes the memory. And so is that sort
Yeah.
of, like, done by design with this?
I think it's one of those things like nobody knows how or why any of this works.
Okay.
We just know that it does, you know. So
Mm.
there wasn't necessarily a design more than a, hey, this works.
Okay.
This works out. I will say, like, personally, to bring it back, you know, to bring the vulnerability back to me, take it off of you for a little while. I did, I think just regular EMDR, with a memory, so similar to this. And the memory now, it was a memory of me being like 3 years old, up in the mountains at the cabin with my grandparents, and everybody was like teasing me or something. And in the memory now, I just turn around and walk right into the forest.
Mm.
That isn't what happened in real life, but in my memory now, like, and that happened naturally through, and I'm not saying like I quote unquote believe that to be true, but the nature of the memory, I shifted that. I decided, like, you know what? It's my brain, it's my memory. And it wasn't even a conscious decision, but this is what my brain did. It's like, you know what? Forget you guys. I'm gonna go off and leave the scene.
It's sort of like someone gave you a painting and you decided that you don't actually like this painting, at least not in this room. So you're afraid to either move it or find something else to hang on your wall.
Exactly. I mean, why wouldn't we be able to do that? Like, why can't we do that with our own experience, right? Our own life experience, you know? The thing about EMDR, brain spotting, all of this is like we get rid of the stuff that's not serving us anymore. We keep the stuff that does. There are good things to be had through our experiences, whether we label them as trauma or not. There are things that we learned. Like, you know, I feel like through all my experiences, I learned to be very independent, you know, which on the one hand can be too much sometimes. And on the other hand, it comes in really handy
Mm.
in life. Yeah.
You know, the expression that, the eyes are the windows into the soul.
Hmm.
It seems like this, with EMDR and brain spotting, especially that the eyes are more the windows into the trauma. Is that
Well, that's interesting that you say that because I learned in brain spotting that apparently the eyes and the brain are made of the same stuff.
wait, what?
I don't know. I wish I had better detail. I'm bad with details. I wish I had better details, but yeah, apparently they're made of the same material, like the eyes and the brain, whatever that
I'm
is.
not sure what that means.
I'll send you some more. I'll send you some more
Okay.
research on that. I'll send you more info.
I'm like, is this like Neil deGrasse Tyson? Like, we're all made of like apple pie and like everything's the same because we're all from stars and
We're
like,
all
okay, we're all
starlight.
star stuff,
We're
right?
all starlight. So yeah, I mean that's the theory, especially of brain spotting, is like, yeah, where you look affects how you feel. Like your eyes do have a connection to your brain, maybe in ways that we don't know or fully understand, and yet they seem to. They seem to.
And then what's that like the thing that when we talked to I don't remember how long ago it was, weeks,
Yeah.
months, I don't know, an hour ago, however,
I don't know.
we were talking about the my sort of creative writer's block around writing music, and
Mhm,
you have me, I was following, I think your finger or something, and sort of hit with this huge wave of emotion. Like,
mhm.
w- why does that? Like, what is that?
Well, back to the brain spotting phrase, you know, where you look affects how you feel. The theory, let me just put in a quick little note here that I love the idea, and I first learned this from Irvin Yalom, who's written some amazing books for therapists and
Hmm.
everybody. I love the idea that the theories, the things we do, all this, you know, CBT, EMDR, et cetera, it's just because we need something to do. And that the actual healing, come back to the relational piece, the actual healing is the relationship, the therapeutic relationship between the therapist and the client.
Are,
That's where the healing is.
are you saying that Yalom theorized that we are just basically a bunch of intellectual bored people looking for other ways to connect?
Well, kind of. I see it more as like I see it more as like structure is important, right?
Yeah.
Structure is important. And there
Mm.
may and in my experience, have I seen EMDR brain spotting work faster than regular talk therapy? Yes. Do I still believe that the relationship between the therapist and the client is the most important part? Yeah, I do. So,
Mm.
and I've forgotten your question because I went off on that tangent.
That's okay. Me too. So this is a really good time for us to take a quick break.
Okay.
When we come back, I want to kind of dive into the sort of the creatives and how these approaches can be helpful for people who identify as creatives. So we will be right back. And now it's time for our new segment that we've been doing here for the last, I think, about 2 months, and that's an ad for a product that doesn't really exist. Do you have piles of who the hell knows what all around you? Random brackets to something you were going to hang or maybe fix? Maybe some half-assorted mail, a half-eaten protein bar? We know life gets busy, and tidying up can sometimes feel like navigating a labyrinth of obstacles that just don't make sense. But what if you had a guide to help you find order amidst the chaos? Introducing Organize. That's ORGANEY. Yes, the first of its kind AI-powered VR glasses designed to bring harmony back to your living space.
Beep beep. The remote control can go in the drawer, right next to your favorite chair.
Using advanced scanning technology, Organize assesses your room and guides you, item by item, towards a more organized life. Just put on your Organize and you'll see your world in a different light. Literally. But Organize is more than just a guide. It's a teacher, a mentor, even a coach. Through thoughtful, interactive prompts, it helps you make decisions about where things go, turning overwhelming tasks into manageable steps.
Beep beep. You seem to use this book often. How about keeping it on the coffee table for easier access?
With Organize, you'll not only clean up your space, but also develop long-lasting organizational habits.
Beep beep. Your Apple remote seems to be on the top shelf of the refrigerator.
Organize, because every item has a place, and it's time to see yours. Wish this product existed? Me too. But what if we don't have to wish for real support for ADHD and neurodivergent brains just like you and me? Because here at ADHD reWired, we are more than just a podcast. We're a community, and we love to have fun while getting things done. Like in our ADHD-friendly body doubling community at adultstudyhall.com, where members get on-demand, real-time accountability and themed and guided co-working sessions. Love what we do here? Then consider supporting us over at Patreon by going to adhdrewired.com/Patreon. And if you want a taste of group coaching, our patrons at $25 a month can jump in for a monthly coaching call every fourth Tuesday of the month, which means if you are listening to this on the day it came out, that would be today, July 25th at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Go to ADHDrewired.com to find it all. That's ADHDrewired.com. And if you have an idea for a fun product that doesn't yet exist, share it with us on social or at our website using the contact form. The website again is ADHDrewired.com. And thanks. All right, we are back. So before we kind of dive into talking really about like creatives and how this works with creatives, Rachel and I were talking, and she kind of was checking in with me during break and seeing how I'm doing. And I'm like, I'm doing okay-ish. And so Rachel's going to help me do some grounding techniques, and I think this is going to be great to demonstrate.
Yeah, I think so too. This is important as well. I try to, when people leave the office or the session, if it's online or whatever, try to make sure that they're feeling present in the moment and not back in the memories. So let's do a quick scale. I know you listening might not be able to see what's happening. We'll try to describe it as much as possible. So I call this the back of the head scale, which we learned in EMDR training. And that's if you put your hand at the back of your head, that's kind of you being like way back in the memories, like way back in that memory you talked about. If your hand is clear in the front of the room, that means in front of your body. That means like you're 100% present and not thinking about anything from the past or future or anything like that. So where do you feel right now, Eric, on that scale? If you could show me.
Maybe a little bit closer towards the back than the front.
Closer to the back. Yeah, closer to the great. Okay, so we're going to do some grounding just to help you get back in the present moment. And this is, anybody can do these things at any time if they feel like they want to get back into the present. So first of all, just stretching. I was already doing it myself. Just whatever feels good in your body, just remembering that we have a body, right? Oftentimes it's so easy to forget, especially in the types of jobs that we do at our desks. Yes. And the next thing I would love for you to do is to look around your space and just call out, just tell me 3 things that are red in color.
The first thing is the recording tracks in real time as we're doing this.
Cool.
I have a pride flag behind me, so the red on that.
Awesome.
And I see a couple books on my bookshelf that are read.
Fantastic. Great. What do you have going on this evening after we're done talking? Anything interesting planned for the rest of your day?
Sure. After this, I have an hour blocked off to work on my proposal for the CHAD conference that I have as just like a good ADHDer does. Have waited until the week that it's due to start working on it.
Great. Great.
And then I'm going to go pick up my son around 5:30.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, how old's your son?
He's 11.
Oh, you have an 11-year-old son. I have my nephew turned 11 today.
Yeah. Happy birthday to him.
That's so cool. Thank you. Okay, let's do a check-in again. Where do you feel on that scale of presence or back of the head?
Similar, not a huge change. I feel like I feel my stomach more, not in an unpleasant
Huh.
way, but just like
Yeah.
just noticing it.
Okay. Yeah. So you feel a little bit more present though?
Yeah.
Similar.
Yeah. There's definitely still some anxiety there.
Yeah.
But present and like definitely in that window of tolerance.
Yeah, good. Okay, good. And especially, when I have people in the office, I want to make sure like they can drive and stuff. So that's what I usually say. I'm like, you feel okay to drive? So would you feel okay to drive now,
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Fantastic.
So am I supposed to do the hand thing again? Is that what
Oh
you're?
no.
No. Okay.
I'm satisfied with that. I
Okay.
don't know how you're feeling.
Okay. No, I'm okay.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
All right. So are we moving on to talking about
Let's do it.
creatives? Okay. All right. So you have a podcast. Your podcast is called Beyond Artist's Block.
It is.
So you do a lot of work with creative clients and looking at sort of the connections between ADHD, creativity, and trauma. And you're looking at using these different modalities. So talk a little bit about how you're doing that, how you got into that work, and how that could be beneficial for people listening.
It was funny when I first was becoming a therapist. I thought like, oh, who am I going to work with? Because and we're also business people if we have our own private practice, and so we have to think about marketing, we have to think about who our ideal clients are, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought, oh, who would I ever work with? I was like, well, I can't work with my creative community because I'm too close to them or something. I just thought like, because in therapy you have such strict boundaries. And I thought, oh, I can't work with the people like who I'd been doing the Artist Way workshops with, because that wouldn't be right. Or I don't know. Finally, a marketing person who was super helpful, she said, well, here's the thing. You need to work with the people that they know. Work with like their friends. Your friends, work with their friends, the people they know. I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. And it was just so blazingly obvious that me being a creative person, like I want to be the therapist who I want to have, which is somebody who understands that creativity can be life or death sometimes. Creativity can bring ultimate meaning to life. It can be so strong as far as like, again, our identity, our purpose for those of us who do identify with it that way. And so to have somebody who understands that and understands, again, like creative wounds, just like we talked about earlier with being misunderstood because of ADHD, I think a lot of times people can be misunderstood if they're artistic, especially in this particular culture that we live in North America. So that's kind of generally how I got into it.
Okay. So if for all the I'll use myself again for an example.
Great.
And this is part of what we were talking about when we first connected. I've growing up, I'm a self-taught musician, so I've been playing piano since I was about 4 years old. I was very close to dropping out of college to play music and to tour. And before I went to grad school, I auditioned with this reggae band. They offered me this gig, and I ended up saying, you know what? If I do anything successful with this, might not go back to grad school. And with just a bachelor's in social work, there's not much you can do with that. So I was like, let me get my master's degree. Then I can make other decisions. And, here I am, like, I don't know how long has it been, 15 plus years later. And, I've been really like struggling to bring music back into my life. I've been doing it more, but I've been trying to do songwriting and I just get really stuck. One of our ADHD reWired coaches, Kristen March, was helping me a little bit with this. She was asking me some questions and she sort of reflected back to me. She's like, it seems like you're trying to write your life story in a song. And I was like, is that a problem? Because I feel like it's been a while since I've written music, and I feel like I've been trying to like pick it up where I left off.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I'm saying that out loud, I always tell people like you have to meet yourself where you're at, not where you were.
Right.
That was just a right now connection. Okay. You're so helpful.
I know you don't need me. It's fine.
Yeah, and so that's sort of like where my stuck has been. Like I get like, then I start like the perfectionism, and then I'm like, oh, this is good, but let me just change this. And it's like I do all these changes, and I'm like, I don't even know where the original form was that I was trying to just like make a small change in. And then I'm like, this is so, yeah, I just get this, like, I just created garbage out of something that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Is this a normal process?
Yes. I got to admit, I would be fascinated to explore this with you in a more therapeutic way. There's so many reasons why we can't do that. But yeah, I mean, if I were you and you wanted to explore this more through something like EMDR brain spotting, I would find, and maybe even with the help of me, trying to find somebody who understands creativity, understands the importance of what this means to you. And it's not just, I have a feeling that it's not just like, oh, it's a hobby, whatever. I could take it and leave it. Like, this seems fundamental.
It's, yeah, I feel that very strongly. It hurts when I'm not doing it.
Right. Exactly.
Like
I love that you said that, because I think that's the difference.
Yeah, it's like it's this kind of overwhelming emptiness. Hmm.
Mm.
All right. So whether it's a listener who's relating to what I'm saying, or it's me just asking you about me, what do I do with this?
My advice from just a few moments ago, I think would be key. Really find somebody who can understand that this is vital for you, like breath for you, right? Like, I will say too, like for me, like I have to sing. Like I have some friends who have to write. I can write. I will write. You can pay me to write. I don't care. I don't want to be paid to sing, even though I have to sing, right? This is because it's so close to my heart, literally. And it's just something I have to do. And I can't imagine my life without it. And I get that. I think, what do you do with that? Well, I have to admit that from a therapist chair standpoint, I'm so excited for you. And I know that might sound horrible because you're like feeling, I can see, you're feeling this intensity. I think there's probably a lot of richness there, a lot of things to be gained by exploring this about yourself. And by like, this is just coming up for me, like by like accepting that about yourself and not feeling ashamed. If you are ever in any situation, and especially a therapeutic one, where somebody tries to discount that or say, like, I don't know, there's things I've been told, like, oh, wow, you must have a lot of time on your hands, or to do that type of thing, or, that creative thing, or, oh, wow, if I had that talent, like, I'd be sure to get paid for it, as if it's not, good enough just to express it, anything like that. Like, just run away, just like, run away. Don't feel bad. They don't get it. Maybe someday they will. That would be my pep talk for you. So like surround yourself with people who, even if they don't understand it, at least accept that about you.
Yeah.
And know that that's your truth.
You've given me a lot to explore, and I appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much for spending this time. It's a real treat to kind of be able to share just a little taste of kind of what I do every day and why I'm so excited about it and why it's so fulfilling to me. And I just love connecting with people. And I really have appreciated connecting with you these couple of times that we've been able to connect. And
likewise,
I'm so excited for you.
Rachel is in California. The website is Rachel Moore. It's MOORE counseling.com. Of course, we will put that link in the show notes, so you don't have to remember that. Just remember that we have show notes that you can find on the website. And I think if you click on like whatever podcast app you're listening to, there's usually like those notes get embedded in there somehow. I don't know how, it just happens. So all of Rachel's information is there. Any final thoughts that you'd like to leave listeners with?
Wow. Just thank you so much for listening to our process today. I know it was, I love how ADHD it was. And it's such a treat to just be able to come on a podcast and like be myself and just know that whatever happens, we'll be fine and we'll just handle it however we need to handle it, do whatever we need to do, and just enjoy the process of being alive. And so it's been a joy. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And, this is, to me,
You
this
bet.
is fun and play. Even though it's hard, it's still fun and play. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
This is Eric Tivers. Thank you for listening, and congratulations for making it to the end. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. We are a community focused on learning, growing, and connection. The website is ADHDrewired.com. You can find time-stamped summaries and additional resources for each episode. Apply to join our free and secret Facebook community. Learn more about our award-winning intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups. Join the Adult Study Hall virtual co-working membership community. Find all the other podcasts on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. Sign up for my email newsletter to get exclusive content that you won't hear anywhere else. And use the search tool to find episodes on specific topics. You can do all of this at ADHDrewired.com. While you're there, click on the Patreon button. If you are a regular listener, consider making a monthly contribution by becoming a patron. If you are able to financially support my work, it would mean a lot. This show is free to you, the listener, but it's not free to produce. Plus, patrons get cool perks like ad-free episodes and access to recordings of coaching calls, and $25 a month patrons can join me once a month for a group coaching call. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Tivers. You can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/ADHD Rewired. If you're a coach, therapist, or related professional, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/Eric Tivers. Subscribe to ADHD Rewired on YouTube to see selective interviews and other videos I've made. Podcasts change lives. You can make a difference in someone's life by spreading the word about this podcast. Mention it in your online communities on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, or wherever you hang out online. And be sure to share it with your friends, family, your therapists, your coaches, doctors, siblings, parents. And if you, your coach, therapist, doctor, or ADHD support group leader would like a pack of podcast postcards to hand out, you can request those at the website, ADHDrewired.com. If you are a member of CHAD, ADA, or any other ADHD support group, please be sure to tell them about this show and all the shows on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. You can even show them how to download it on their phone. And if you really loved this particular episode, please hit share on your podcast player. I'm only one person, and I do count on you to help spread this message. One of the biggest things that you can do to support this podcast and help other people discover it is to leave an honest rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other app that supports reviews. And don't forget to hit subscribe so new episodes are automatically pushed to your favorite podcast app. Looking for more ways to listen and learn? Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at Audible by going to audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired. Here is my list of must-listen-to audiobooks updated July 2021. Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Attached by Amir Levin and Rachel Heller. Atomic Habits by James Clear. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Crucial Conversations by Carrie Patterson. The Coaching Habit by Michael Stainer. The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk. Rest by Alex Sujong Kim Pang. The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. Make It Stick. The Science of Successful Learning by Peter Brown. The Productivity Project by Chris Bailey. Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics by Dan Harris. Change Your Questions, Change Your Life by Marilee G. Adams. I always recommend to my coaches and admin that they read that book. The One Thing by Gary Keller, a required reading for all of our coaching group members. Procrastinate on Purpose by Rory Baden. The 4 Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer. And if you're looking for something a little bit more magical, I have fallen in love with the Harry Potter series, and the narrator, Jim Dale, is amazing. And of course, if you haven't yet boarded the Brene Brown bus, all of her stuff is great, starting with Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, Rising Strong, and The Power of Vulnerability. And if you're an entrepreneur or leader, be sure to check out her book, Dare to Lead. Do you have something that you would like to share? Click on the podcast tab at ADHD Rewired. Click the button to be a guest at the top of the page and schedule a 15-minute interview. This is Eric Tivers, reminding you to keep learning, growing, and connecting. Self-care is not selfish. No matter what you get done or don't get done, you are still enough. And no matter how hard it feels, we can do hard things. And we don't need to do them in the hardest way possible. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next week.